We're almost at the halfway point of the championship here, and what a venue that we are going to bring you all the action from. It's the SimRacing Grand Prix here from Road Atlanta, and we're here with the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. Let's get all of the action on RaceSpotTV. Nearly said iRacing, there we go. And it is Paul Smith and Smil Aurora in the commentary booth. And Smil, what a venue, what an exciting venue it is Road America for us here today.
I love Road America. It's one of my favorite circuits on the iRacing service, and it's an all-star calendar as well, Paul, because as you can see on our screen, we went to Circuit of the Americas, then a crazy race at Imola, now Road America, a proper American road course circuit, which I think is very underappreciated in the grand scheme of things, and then we go to Bathurst and Hockenheim. So the organizers really choosing a perfect calendar. And Road America, Paul, it's not as wide as many think it is, but the kind of action that we get here all the time, crazy.
Well, here are the standings as they are at the moment. Sindre Setsos then leading this one over Carl Herzog with Oscar Bixrud. Well, you never write him out, along with Glenn Key, both on 108 points. Yaltian, 101 points in 5th place with Fugelsand. My goodness, Engbretson. I've been practicing that all day as well. Versuth and Erlandson with Nordstrand in 10th place in the championship. Quite a stacked field in this Norwegian championship, and you've got to say, Setsos, with that experience from the Porsche Sakhir Esport Super Cup, really stood out last time out at Imola.
He did, Paul. He actually did not get the win, by the way. It was Yaltian, which was under controversial circumstances, but sets are still very impressive. And the important point is, Paul, he holds on to a 30-point lead. And it's not a big championship, this one. We've not got 15 or 20 rounds whatsoever. Only 5 of them. And having a 30-point lead in a 5-race championship, I think it's immense. Setsos really has one hand on the championship, if you think of it that way. But when you consider the competition in the field, it's still going to be very, very tricky right till the end.
That is how today and every round of the championship will go. We're currently in a warm-up session, then 10-minute qualifying, followed by a sprint race of 15 minutes. Then they get a bit of a break for 15 minutes in a warm-up, and then the 30-minute feature race to finish off today's race to give you your race winner here today. But it's a glorious day in Elkhart Lake, and it's a tremendous venue. Is Road America. There's the famous Corvette bridge. One of the tricky corners is turn 6. We'll get a look at the whole lap at some point in the coverage here, and we'll also be giving you a little bit of highlights of what happened last time out at Imola. But in fact, speaking of Imola, let's take you there. And Samil, you were on commentary for this one. It was a tremendous day of racing.
Absolutely, it was so intense around there. My first time commentating on this championship came right there in Imola, and I didn't come in with any hopes and any expectations, because that's what I normally do, and I just left so satisfied. The kind of hard and crazy racing that we saw went down to the very end to this incident between Yaltian and Sindre Setsos. As you can see, getting so close to the end. And what happened next, Paul, was immense, because finally we did see Sindre Setsos winning the sprint race, the early one, but at the end, that got really close there.
Yeah, they certainly did. That sprint race was tremendous to watch. But then it all kicked off at the start of the feature race. And, well, 2 of your Coanda Junior drivers off at turn 1 down at Tamburello. But then you could see the closeness between Tian. A little bit of contact out the Villeneuve chicane as well. There was contact between teammates as well, Samil, which was, well, that was unexpected.
Indeed, yeah, and what eventually happened was that Benjamin Fuglsang, the winner of the championship in 2020, well, he got knocked out right there in the early parts. And this incident, this was the controversial one, because Sindre Setsos on the final lap was forced into the gravel. Yaltian ended up winning the race, and well, it actually caused a big protest from Sindre, and race control initially made sure that Sindre should win this race, because that was not a good move. But then they reversed it. So in the end, Yaltian does keep his win. But I don't think Sindre will be too sad about it, because he still comes in with a 30-point advantage as we see a spinner on the track.
Yep, these drivers just getting themselves acclimatised to the track and the conditions out there. And, well, we keep on mentioning it with this car and with this series from last round. No driver aids here, so no ABS, no traction control. It is all a driver's car. And with the limited downforce that you get on these cars as well, it really is a challenge to take this car around the track.
Oh, it is. And what a driver's car this is. The Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car, known in the real world and in the virtual to be a car that really tests you to your limits. And a good example of that is, I've asked quite a few racing drivers competing in this championship and another one as well on RaceSpotTV where we do have these cars, about how do you feel before the round, do you feel comfortable with the car? And they all just have to say one thing, Paul, and I know I keep on repeating this point everywhere, but they just say that you can't ever be comfortable with the GT3 Cup car. It's a car that always pushes you to the limit, and isn't that what we all like to see? Racing drivers stretched out to the max. That is what creates some really entertaining driving at the end.
Well, with this venue, you do get a couple of sections where you can just gather your thoughts and think about what's going to be happening. As I say, we'll be getting a hot lap video very shortly indeed. But, you know, the main pit straight and the straight between turn 3 and 5, and it is a straight. I don't care what they say about that little kink in the middle. It's a straight. That just gives you a bit of time to just process things, say, right, what's the situation, where am I, can I make some moves forward, or you can sit in the slipstream of the car in front. Those are real times to just maybe just gather your thoughts and just take a breath before you then end up with the intense second half of the lap.
And if you're someone like Mac Backham, VR Squad and Sim Sports drivers, he's known to be drinking water at such long straights. So maybe you could do that as well. Perhaps just refresh yourself. And it's necessary because when you're involved in such high-speed action like you do have in the SimRacing Grand Prix, quite often you just need to calm your mind down. And those straights, Paul, really invaluable. Though I think that they barely will be getting any mental space there because drafting here is going to be critical at those straights.
Yeah, that is one of the key features of this track, of course. You've got to get the good run out of this corner, the final corner, and then get onto the power nice and early, as we see Oscar Bixrud just going through in warm-up. Steep hill. That is, it's an incredibly steep hill, is that, and it's uphill all the way to the starter's gantry. Up over the top, and then out with pit exit to your right there. And he can get that run down into turn number 1. It's a tricky overtake to make if you're alongside. And well, here we go. This is the onboard hot lap that we're going to have a look at then, Tamil. Why don't you talk us through the lap here?
Indeed, here, coming up to the first corner, after this particular marker, you have to brake very hard and kind of tiptoe the car around the first corner. You don't want to be too slow, but you don't want to be too fast there as well, because the Porsche barely having any downforce. Downhill, descending into the right-hander here, Paul, and the exit is going to be so crucial, because here we have the longest straight, not the longest straight, but the second longest straight at the circuit, and it is mighty, mighty long, where drafting is going to be a big factor. And you do want to get the best exit possible to have the maximum straight line speed. Then, descending downhill, and I really find this braking point to be very, very tricky, Paul, because I can't quite figure out my marker well. And when the car is descending downhill, it becomes very tricky to actually brake properly without having the rear end step out for this left-hander now in the middle sector. Of course, remember when IndyCar came around here only a couple of weeks ago, it was so easy to get one wheel on the grass and spin around, as we did see in the start. So this corner right here, Paul, that's going to be the critical one. And this part, I think you should be talking through us to the carousel, because it's a really tricky corner, Paul.
Well, that's it. The carousel, you've got to be really patient with your throttle around here. So you can see we're in 4th gear. He's holding and holding. The car wants to understeer. You want to get on the power as early as possible to get the run out of the corner. Use all of the curb on the left-hand side. And then the kink, again, using the curb on the left. Run it out wide. Use everything, all of the track and then some. You've paid for it, you might as well use it. And then heading down through the kettle bottoms towards Canada Corner. Again, this is another key overtaking opportunity through here. You can make the run into there, but it compromises your run out. And then through Thunder Valley, up through Bill Mitchell Bend, the left-hander here. before you head towards the final corner, turn 14. Compromise your entry to a degree, because then you're on the power, get the best run you can, use the slipstream of the car in front of you, climb up that hill, and that is a lap of this Road America circuit. It is a tremendous venue, one that a lot of drivers do love racing at here, as we go back to live pictures here. But it does produce some tremendous racing, even though, as you mentioned, Samil, it's not the widest track. It's not like a FIA Category 1 circuit where you've got big, wide, expansive circuit, then masses of runoff. You make a mistake here, it will bite back.
Exactly. That's the main thing about Road America, especially the moraine sweep that we saw right there. As I said, very tricky downhill braking corner where there's runoff up ahead, but there's barely any of it at the exit. So it's so easy, and we often see drivers just get one wheel on the grass and spin around. Even more so considering the fact that this Porsche Cup car doesn't have any traction control. So once it goes there, once it's in that half spin, there's a really good chance that you might not be able to control it back there. So Road America, on the surface, it seems like a very simple track. Just a couple of 90-degree corners here and there, and the carousel, of course. But when you actually go to drive it, it really is so challenging. And that grass, it may seem far off, but it's so inviting. When you're at the edge, when you're at the limit, it just brings you closer. And it becomes so hard just to keep the car on the track, by the way.
Yeah, well, here's Herzog at the moment, 7th place in the warm-up, as you say. Still in the practice session beforehand, where you're getting your eye in, getting the final little preparations made before you're then taking to qualifying. Now, qualifying here, it's important, but it's also not important. You don't necessarily want to end up on pole position because the slipstream is so strong here. It almost reminds me a little bit of Monza.
Yeah, and luckily we don't quite have those sort of draft train issues. A sort of a fast was what people called it in 2019. But still, it's interesting, and it's a good point that you mentioned there, Paul, because P1 is going to be a bad place for you to be in that sprint race that we're going to have early on. And of course, that compromises your starting position for the feature race. And I think it's okay to bite the bullet in the sprint race. It's okay if you're on pole position, and maybe even if you win the sprint race, it's all right because, no, if you don't, what I mean to say is, if you're not in P1 at the end of the sprint race, it's okay because then you have a good run and then you will get the slipstream on someone else in the feature race. What you don't want to be doing is winning the sprint race. You can qualify that at top because eventually you will fall down because of the draft, but you don't want to be winning that sprint race that we're going to get here. It might give you some points, but in the long run, not really the best place to be in.
Team Bergen, they didn't have the best of times at Imola in the feature race. the Villeneuve chicane, both two of their team going off, almost synchronised going off. It was on the opening lap, and they'll be hoping for a better outcome here today. But the start of the race, it's going to be crucial. You're on those cold tyres, cold brakes, blasting into turn 1, which is actually quite a sort of medium to high speed corner when you think of it. It's not the slowest of corners, and it's pretty much one line through there. You've got to compromise if you do go too wide through turn 1.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you can do that, but the exit really tightens up. So there's literally no room whatsoever, and there's just a slight bit of pavement on the left-hand side, and it's so narrow that you can barely put a couple of wheels over there on it. So going side by side at turn number 1, it is possible, but it's not the best idea in the world considering how high-paced of a corner it is and considering the lack of downforce that this car actually has.
Well, we're getting close to the end of the warm-up session. Drivers getting themselves prepared for the start of qualifying. Well, they'll be just making sure that they've got their setup right, got the correct fuel load on board, and also just make sure that they've got their qualifying setup. Of course, drivers tend to run just a little bit of a different qualifying setup because you're not having to worry about looking after your tyres in qualifying. You use and abuse those tyres in qualifying, and that's what they'll be doing. They'll be changing over to their different setup. But that is going to be the end of the warm-up here, and we get to look at the Corvette bridge because we're heading into qualifying now. 10 minutes of qualifying for them to decide the grid for the sprint race here. And, well, Samil, we've seen the first 2 rounds how Setsaw seems to do well in qualifying, a couple others as well. Who are we thinking here? As in fact, we'll look at Setsaw as he makes his way out of pit road.
So, of course, it's going to be very, very hard to look beyond Sondre Setsaas, considering the great run that he's actually had so far in qualifying and considering how dominant he has been. But really, you can't quite rule out the likes of a Fuglsang in the end as well. Because Fuglsang, of course, past champion in the series, a part of the Coanda Junior team, didn't have the best of rounds in Imola, but was a very strong qualifier. So watch out for the 2 Coanda Junior cars as there, Fuglsang and Bixrud. Those are going to be 2 aces right there too.
So, Setsaw out of the pits, getting himself prepared, getting his tyres up to temperature and the brakes. Of course, generally with this car, it's usually the second lap where you see that better lap time when the tyres are more in their operating window. The first lap is a bit of a banker lap, isn't it? It's basically, if you were watching the Formula 1 qualifying yesterday, it's what happened with Max Verstappen yesterday. He didn't get that banker lap in, and he really had to just be careful of track limits on his second flying lap. That's what you can have here. If you get an invalidated lap on your first lap, you want to push on, but at the same point, you need to get a lap time in just full stop.
That's absolutely correct, Paul. And just like Formula 1 at Portimao, this particular car is going to be a proper handful for all the drivers. Now, that happened at Formula 1 because there was a lot of tailwind coming in, but with the Porsche, because you've not got any complex aerodynamic elements apart from the rear wing, there's barely anything for you to operate on. It's just you, mechanical grip, and how you drive with the car. And Road America, considering where we have those sort of corners where you have to tiptoe in, like turn number 1, like the Bill Mitchell bend as well, it becomes such a challenge for the driver. How much are you willing to commit to qualifying? How much are you willing to risk it all the way through? Because if you just go even slightly up ahead, this car's going to bite and bite bad.
Well, here we are then on board with Setsaw, the core SimRacing driver, into turn number 1 then. Gets his line nice there. You can see the webcam shot of him behind the wheel. And as always, it always amazes me just how calm and collected these drivers are. If you saw a webcam of me driving, you'd see I'd be looking all dishevelled and flailing at the wheel. But these drivers, they're so confident, they're so happy behind the wheel, they're just nice and smooth. The inputs that they give are deliberate, and they're not reactive because they don't need to react to the car. They know what the limits are out there, as Setsaw's looking good so far on the opening of this lap.
One very interesting thing that you can actually spot out while watching an onboard of any driver in the Cup car, especially on the input when you enter the braking zone, is how much the steering wheel really moves. So to really ace it, you have to make sure that there's minimal movement, like Setsaw had right now. Just very minor. Of course, the rear end of the car really snaps on you when you're braking in there, but the best of drivers are able to keep it very sane, very stable. But I've noticed sometimes the drivers are driving in some anger where they've actually not been able to keep control of their emotions. You'll see them having some really hard inputs on the way to the braking zone, which really kind of goes to show that, okay, they're not the most calm drivers in the world right now. Sometimes it works for you because the emotion and the anger drives you to a better result. But as we've seen with the likes of Sondre Setsaas, because they're able to keep their emotions aside and they're able to keep it so calm and so composed, they just get the best results. Sondre leading the championship by 30 points, Paul. It's evident how it works out for him.
Yeah, as he's running out of Bill Mitchell Bend into turn 14. Needs to get his lap time in. We'll be starting seeing those lap times coming up on the left-hand side of your screen very shortly. But this is it now. You can just relax, just keep the foot absolutely planted. Weld it to the floor, up and across the line, and Setsaw provisionally on pole position, although Oscar Bixrud has just put in an even quicker time, 41 thousandths of a second quicker than Setsaw. So Setsaw needs to react to that one as we go down into turn number 3 with Setsaw once again. But yeah, Bixrud, really good opening lap time from him. Here's Yaltian then, number 6 car. Should be on his opening lap here. Yeah, not set a qualifying lap yet, This is his first of his 2 flying laps here, Samil.
Yup, Yartin qualifying in P number 2 the last time out at Imola. He's a man who knows exactly how to get a car to the top of the field. Now, coming to the carousel, just narrowly avoiding getting too much of understeer. Look at how he actually tackles the corner pole. He takes it like 2 different corners, gets a late apex, and cuts it back and makes it around the exit towards the end. That's smart driving from Tian. Let's see where it actually gets him when he comes across the line in a couple of corners now.
Yeah, if you're defending the place in the race, you want to hug the inside of that corner really tight. But when you're on a fast lap like that, you almost V it off as, oh, back end not cooperating a little bit there with Tian under braking into Canada corner. But yeah, you almost V off the carousel. You take it, hit an early apex, let it run out, drift out a little bit wide, and then when you're getting back on the power, take the late apex and carry that speed through then to the kink. But here's Tian up the hill. And we'll see Barney the flagman there, patiently waiting. Across the line, a 209.4. That will put him up there into 5th place. He needs to pick up a bit of time on the second run now, does Tian. The second run for a few of these drivers should be coming through very shortly as well.
Yup, take a look at this one. That's Carl Frederick Harshog.
Setsource, 0.2 of a second to the top of your standings.
Goodness, that is some lap right there by Sander Setsals. He knows that the peak performance of the car is done, so that's why he's sparking it up. That's his effort done. Now, what does Bixter do, Paul? Because the last time out, the gap was just 0.04 of a second. Bixter is warming it up. This is going to be intense right now.
Oh, the back end swinging out, trying to get heat into those tyres. Really trying to get the best out of this car. You can actually, if you're not too careful with it, you can actually burn out the clutch on this car. So you've really got to be careful if you do any sort of burn or try to attempt to do any sort of speed, slowing down and accelerating away. So here we go then, Bixrud. What's the reaction going to be from the youngster? These drivers making me feel very old right now in sim racing as we go up the hill to start a lap here. 2 minutes 18 remaining in qualifying. We'll be getting set then. What can he do there? You can see the youngster behind the wheel, turn in. Very nice line, using the curb on the exit there. That's good work so far. Brake early for this corner. Swing it in, get on the power nice and early, because you've got to carry that speed all the way through the moraine sweep down towards turn number 5. We'll get an idea of what the lap time will be in about 1.5 minutes here, Smil.
Indeed, yeah, Bixford coming down to the moraine sweep, a very hard braking zone. But just look at his eye line, Paul. It's just focused in the right place. Even though he's just born in 2006, which makes him, what, barely 14 years old, he knows the proper aspects of racing. You have to have your eye line in the right place. You have to keep it under control. When I was 14, I just took the steering wheel and just moved it left and right. This guy is a proper ace. What a driver he is.
Back when I was 14, you didn't have force feedback wheels, but there you go. As we go through the corner here, a few more lap times coming in. Herzog, Meyer and Nordstrand all finding themselves in the top 5. So that's Kenneth Ostfeldt down to 6th place. Marius Engebretsen has just moved up into 7th place as well. So as the times are starting to come in there a little bit wide there, but should get away with that. And he's keeping going here is Bixrud. Can he get that pole position that provisionally Sindre Setsource is currently sitting in as he comes through Thunder Valley into Bill Mitchell Bend, up over the top, use that curb, use all the track and then some. Onto the brakes now. Turn 14, that final corner, get on the power. Can't see the car, can't see whether he ran wide or not because of the trees there. And he'll come across that, and he's abandoned the lap. He knows it's not an improvement. That's it for Bixrud. So it's going to be Setsource who finds himself on pole position here, Samil. Fantastic effort there.
Once again, Solno Setsas getting another pole position in the bag. And is it the best place in the world to be in? I suppose it is, Paul. Because if you get pole position in the sprint race, there's a good chance that you might qualify in a good position in the feature race. Because, of course, winning this will get you some points, but not the best position to be in for the feature one. I think Setsas is fine. He should be in a good place right now.
Setsas, Bixrud, Herzog, Meyer with Nordstrand and Ostwald rounding out the top 6 of your starting grid there. So really good mix of drivers there. Engbretsen with Tien. Jarl Tien will be slightly disappointed with that. Fuglsang in 9th with Key. Strom and Birk rounding out the top 12. Yeah, that Commander Junior team makes me feel really old right now when you see those pictures as well. Christensen with Wangen. Erlandsen, Versuth with Havdal and Skummerlin in 18th place. And then we'll be able to see the rest of your grid up on screen right now. Sindre Silva, of course, down in 21st place. Frank Larson down in 24th as well. Brilliant sort of diverse grid that we're seeing all the way down here. Hans Hansen down in 30th place. And it is a stacked grid as well here today. We've got 40 cars out there on track. And very, very briefly then, Sumail, who's your call for this opening race?
So, ideally it would not be the best thing for Setsas to win, because he gets put in a bad place, but it's really hard for him to lose any positions considering how hard he defended last time out. So, I think I'm going Setsas for the win.
Well, the drivers are getting all set for the start of this one. 7 laps of Road America. Green flag, away we go. Good start from the front. They're going 3 wide further back. Everybody's making it out across the line. You can get incidents into turn number 1. Side-by-side action, Herzog and Meyer as they go through turn 1, through the little kink at 2 and down towards turn 3. Everybody's behaving so far and keeping it nice and clean. This is what we like to see. All right, as I say that, big accident, big wreck there. That was car 1 was involved in that one. That's Fuglsang. Big incident then further back in your field. Car 22 as well, with which is Dennis Birk involved. So big drama early on in turn 3, on the exit of turn 3.
And he's out. Benjamin Fuglsang, the champion of 2020, is out again in the sprint race. And yet again, Paul, what a coincidence, contact with his teammate for the 2nd race in a row. I can't believe it.
Well, we better believe it, and he'll be having some terse words, that's for sure. I'll have a word with his engineer, no doubt. But through turn number 8, in towards the carousel for the first time, and it's Setsas, Bixrud, Herzog, Meyer, Nordstrand with Ostwald, Tien and Key rounded out the top 8 of your field. Running wide there was Bixrud out of the exit of the carousel. That's going to leave him open to a bit of pressure from Herzog behind. Here we're on board with Kenneth Ostwald in that MB Racing Nordic team down towards Canada Corner first time. Everybody's staying in a line here on the power once again through Thunder Valley towards Bill Mitchell Bend. We've got 18 minutes remaining of this opening race. This is of course the sprint race, the feature race coming up after this one as well. So 30-minute feature race coming up later on. But this right now is going to be intense. It's going to be fast and frenetic, and already Setsas is feeling the need to try and break the slipstream here, Sumail. And that could be the key thing to see throughout this race.
He has to do that. There's no other choice that he has, because the draft can be so powerful at a straight that long. Well, Setsas will have a tough time defending if he does not do that, and now he's doing a quite effective job at that. Again, we should see something similar right here, Paul, as they come out to the backstretch.
Yep, straight away. Moving to the right-hand side of the track, trying to break that draft, but Bixrud is going to stay absolutely in line with that one as we look forward towards your race leader. showing the outside line. You can do it around the outside there, but try and get the cut back if you can, Bixrud. In towards turn number 6. Not going to happen this time. That's a tricky corner entry because you're changing down gear as you go over the crest of that. So easy to lock up the rear wheels as you change gear. We've got issues further down in your field, and Sindre Silva is involved in that one. So too is Marcus Myaseth as well. And that's dropped them two down to 35th and 38th in this race. Silva not having the best of days out there, doing a little bit of rally crossing, although I don't think that's appropriate today.
Exactly. It's been a torrid season so far for Sindre Silva, barely getting any points in. Finds himself right at the bottom end of the championship at P number 32. Bad way to get in the third round as well, Paul. But again, luckily for him, there's another race later on. But what's happening here?
This is
Big
huge.
Carnage.
Yeah, this is huge. So we've got a number of cars on. That's Netpol. Down there in 36, I think Hans-Gunnar Hansen was involved. There's a lot of smoke there. There's a car upside down. Huge accident at the kink, and that was Silva.
No.
It's so easily done, and the problem is it's so blind on the entry into the kink that if somebody's had an issue there, you can't see what's happened, and you end up just piling into the accident.
Man. Drama everywhere at Road America. You can just see the smoke from that car right now. To Bixrud looking for a move on Sondre Setsas. Here's a look at the replay of the chaos that happened right there, Paul. So this is turn number 1. Everything was fine
so
until
this is the start.
It wasn't.
Yeah, this is the start of the race then. This is the instant down into turn number 3. And it's on corner exit here. And the car in front just gets tagged. Oh, and getting caught up in that was the 22. We'll get back. So Dennis Burke out of the race from that one incident. You can see he's struggling on, and there's the overhead shot then, and that car, it just takes a heavy hit, heavy impact to the rear suspension. That'll have knocked the alignment out and possibly caused it to be undrivable, and that appears to be the case there. Then we're going to look further on. This is what happened to Silva then in this lap. Oh, contact between him and the 125 ends up on the grass, and then Silva, I noticed, was involved in the big one down at the King.
Yeah, that's Kjetil Nepple.
So this is the carousel.
Yeah. Exactly. So a couple of people, I think they lost the rear end of the car is what I can think of, and then eventually there's barely any space to go because, as we mentioned early on, it's not a very wide track, Paul, so there's barely any room out there, especially at the carousel where there's just acres and acres of grass, which eventually will cause things like this.
Yeah, so the scenes involved there, I mean, it's so frustrating for those drivers out there. The 666 of Godestad then, the Fox Gaming driver. Oh, so it's the car in front, the car 90 of Frank Tor Larsen that loses control. That causes a big pile up there between those drivers. Others coming charging in. Of course, they can't see on the entry to the corner. They will have been getting yellow flags from the sim. And then the suspense replay will carry on because Sindre Silva is then going to come round. Oh, this is going to be an ambitious move into the King. We've got a slow car on the right. Oh, and it loses control. That's what happened there. So there's damage. There must be damage to the suspension of that car that was trying to stay out of the way. And that just sends it hard left.
That was a violent move right there. I'm not sure the car was in his control, because if it possibly was, he would never do that. And that is a crazy accident. 2 big ones in the space of only a couple of meters here and there. Now Bixrud looking for something for the lead as well. Goodness me, we've had all sorts of accidents so far already, Paul. Only a couple of minutes into this race.
Unfortunately, with the nature of the track, with it being such a narrow track, and with there being a number of blind corners as well, if there's an accident in the middle of it, you're just charging straight into that incident. But at the front then, this is the 4th lap of the race. It sets also ahead of Bixrud with Herzog and Meyer. Nordstrand and Ostwald is your top 6. Yaltian currently sat there just patiently in 7th place ahead of Glen Key. Here's Nordstrand then through the carousel onto the power once again. He's got Maya ahead. And again, just these drivers, they've practiced so much. They know these cars intimately. They know the track intimately as well. They're just so comfortable. It's like it's nothing here for them.
Easy. And very Scandinavian in terms of showing emotion on their face, Paul.
Well,
it's
true.
like it's like everything is under control for them, which it is, because of the kind of effort that they've put in before the race. And look at this for Nordstrand, using every single inch of the circuit, and it seems to be a tactic that all the Commander cars are doing, because I saw the same thing with Bixford early on in his qualifying run as well, but it's not paying off eventually. It's just losing them time.
Well, Setsos is starting to get a bit more defensive from Bixrud, and in fact Bixrud is going to make the move into turn number 1. We're on board with Herzog behind. Can they cohabit turn number 1 side by side? Giving each other racing room there. Down into turn number 3 now, again braking. Bixrud will get the run out of the corner a little bit better than Setsos, but Setsos, great run on the inside, but Bixrud still with that nose inside. Can he make the move in towards turn number 5? Here comes Herzog now as well. He's wanting to get involved in this, but there's nowhere to go. Decides to back out of it, and Bixrud, will he find himself at the front? They're still side by side. Little bit of a squeeze on the curb, and they're still going side by side here. They're going to be like this all lap here, Samel.
Exactly. I get a feeling that they're going to continue this right down to the carousel, and no, sets us slots back in. What a battle it was, and this is just round number 1, folks. We're going to get a lot more of this in the sprint heat race and then in the feature one as well. This is absolutely crazy. But one thing that I could point out right there was not this. Isaacson really going the wrong way around there.
I think he's had an issue with Espen Erlandsen, because Erlandsen dropped down the order as well. But tremendous respect shown between the two of them there, wasn't it, Samel? It was tremendous to see that the room that they're giving each other there, it shows that the if they sort of squeeze, you know, they'll make sure that there is a car's width, because neither of these drivers want to end up with a DNF here.
That's very true, because if you get a DNF here, that's essentially losing a lot of qualifying positions in for the crucial feature race where most points are awarded, especially if you're someone like a Sondre Setsas who has a target on their back. You cannot afford to have a bad round any way through, even more so when there's just 5 rounds in the championship, and this is round number 3. So this race is exceptionally crucial, but that's the good thing, Paul. So that's why in this heat race they are normally more cautious. You won't see them just kind of backing off like Harshog did early on at turn number 5, and now Setsas going on the aggressive.
Yeah, Setsos trying to show his nose. Oh, a little bit of a squeeze between the two of them. Into 3, they're going again. Number 1 seat in the house. You know, you cannot. You need to pay a lot of money for that seat, that's for sure. Chopping off the nose of Bixrud. Setsos wants the inside line for the next corner, because he knows that if he's got the inside here, he's got the inside for turn 6 as well. Onto the brakes, we've got 2x2 action as well, because the number 11 of Nordstrand trying to get involved in this one, and Ostwald, Tien and Glen Key are getting involved in this one. We've got a huge queue of traffic, 8 cars all trying to get first place here. Through the kink at 7, down the hurry downs in towards turn number 8. Again, tricky downhill braking. Onto the brakes there, and Bixrud now back into second place. But that's not the that's not a problem for him. He's probably got another lap to go here in this race, potentially. In this one, could see him make the move on the final lap. We'll have to wait and see.
But what a battle that was, Paul. Almost like a deja vu, because we saw them literally go side by side for the same section of corners for 2 laps consecutively, but the result was different. And the first time out, it was Bixrud who had the nose up ahead. This time out, it is Sondre Setsas who has reclaimed his P1 position right at the top. I love the intensity. I love the fact that they're pushing it hard, but they're not going at 110% because they realize that's not what they have to do right now. That's very good stuff. And a form of this sort of smart driving has come in the form of Harshog, because he had a chance really in the last lap to get a move on both of them, like a really sneaky attack, but he backed off, knowing that right now he needs a good result instead of just getting P1 or P2. Here comes Bixrud though.
Yeah, look at that slipstream. Barney the flagman waving the white flag. It is the start of the final lap of this race through turn 1, and they're still going to go at it side by side. The tree's getting in the way of our aerial coverage by Ativo, but Setsos to the inside, keeping that place, and crucially chops off the nose of Bixrud once again. But here comes Bixrud. He'll be getting that slipstream, running out of places to make the move here in the sprint race, and Herzog as well getting involved, and that's almost boxing in the second place driver Bixrud around the outside, because Herzog, can he make this move stick? They're still going to stay together. Setsos will be rubbing his hands with glee, saying thank you very much, you two squabble over second, I want to run away with the lead.
And now Anders Meyer could have a run on his teammate, because there, Harshog going on a bit too aggressive and losing the position to Bixrud. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, Paul.
Wow. Turn number 8. Time running out for these drivers. Bixrud is 0.6 of a second behind. That's too bigger a gap, really, to make a challenge at this point. He needs a little mistake from Setsos in front to be able to have a chance at going for the lead. But it's this battling all the way through. Nordstrand, Ostwald, Tien's there as well, just hanging on at the back towards Canada Corner for the final time. Bixrud is not going to be close enough at this point, but if he's close enough out of turn 14, can get the charge up the hill. A little bit wide from Herzog then in P3. That's going to allow Meyer to gain right on up to the back of that car in front. But it's not quite going to be enough. Dive to the inside of 14. That is Nordstrand not making that move stick, and is going to come under pressure from Ostwald. But it's the driver at the front, Sindre Setsos, the leader of the championship, comes across the line to take victory here in the sprint race, and absolutely, utterly emotionless as the top 8 come across the line, just covered by 3 seconds. Pretty close, that one.
It's like Sindre Setsos knew heading into this race that this one is just going to be his. Just pure calmness. But that was far from what happened in this race, Paul. It was just crazy drama all the way through. And that battle that we saw at the top, I just think that we're going to get an even better one in the feature race that's going to come up now.
Well, 8 drivers did not finish that race. We're going to race to the line there, down at the back there. That was Cullen and Hansen who were close together. Just 36 thousandths of a second between the two of them as they crossed the line there. See, battling all the way to the end. That was over 28th and 29th places. But here are your official sprint race results then. Sindre Setsos ahead of Oscar Bixrud for the first 2 positions, with Carl Frederick Herzog rounding out your podium positions. Anders Meyer and then Carl Nordstrand in 4th and 5th places. Kenneth Roswell with Carl Tien, Jarl Tien should I say. Glenn Key, Matthias, and the rest of the field will be seeing on screen right now. But well, that was an exciting sprint race. We've got a little bit of time to decompress here, Samel. This feature race, it shouldn't be as manic because you've got double the length of time to make those moves.
I kind of disagree, Paul. Last time out we did see that because in the sprint race they were all sane, because they knew they had to finish this one and get a good qualifying position for the feature race. But for certain drivers, it can get to a feeling of, right, I just have to get a good result. Let's throw everything that we have. Let's throw the kitchen sink at it and see what we can make out of it. That's what Jarl Tien did last time out. That's how he made that block pass that got him the win eventually. I think as you rightly mentioned, it's not going to be as manic. It's just going to be sustained drama, is the way I'd like to put it. But there's going to be tons of it throughout the 30 minutes.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's, you see those number of drivers who did not finish the race in the end there. 8 drivers in total who did not finish. The drivers now, as we say, just get to take a breath and wait and see, and basically gather their thoughts. If they've got somebody working with them as a race engineer, just go through what happened in that race and, well, okay, you did this in this point, try this instead. Or even just G'ing up. I mean, we heard a few times in the Porsche Esport Super Cup as Sindre is having an interview with the Norwegian coverage, but we saw a few times as well, a couple of the drivers actually getting a bit of a pep talk in this time between the sprint race and the feature race.
It's like having that sort of break between the rounds in a mixed martial arts match, and what's fed into your mind, whether it's a calming message or something that can really pump you up, can make a world of difference in the big race that's going to come up later on, or in an MMA case, the next round that's going to come up. And the key point is, unlike in an MMA match where every round matters equally, this feature race matters even more so than the sprint race that we just saw right now. So your mental frame of mind has to be especially strong. And this 8-minute window that we have right now, Paul, really critical in making sure that the drivers not only are in the right frame of mind, but are also up in touch with the latest track conditions as well, because sometimes that can change between the sprint.
Appears we just lost Samil just a moment there. Hopefully we'll get him back in just a minute. Yeah, so these drivers will be getting themselves set and prepared. One of the best ones I've ever heard was basically because I used to play rugby a lot, and one of our coaches once said, after we were stood after the opposition had scored a try and was setting up for the goal, and the coach came over and he says, "What are you doing? You're all acting like you don't know each other." And it just really get it into your head. Look, oh, come on, you need to step it up. You're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your team. Okay, in this championship, yes, it's an individual championship, but you have got teammates out there, and you don't want to be getting involved in them and don't want to be having issues with their races. And so you really got to just get it into your head, right, forget that last race. If you had a bad race, if you're one of those 8 drivers who did not finish, forget that last race. That's gone now. Prepare for this next race, because you're going to have a lot of overtaking to do out there. And for some of those drivers out there as well who got involved in that lap 1 carnage, I'm thinking Dennis Burke, that's a lot of places they've got to try and gain in this second race.
That's very, very true. That is such a critical aspect, which is what adds another dynamic to the feature race, is that some drivers, they don't really have the best of sprint races. What can you make of it in the big feature race right now? I think it's much like what Formula 1 is trying to experiment with. Now, and this sort of dynamic should work for them as well, because we've seen so many times in that Porsche Tiger Esport Super Cup as well, Paul. Some drivers who have not just been able to get it done in the sprint race have a real target. They really want to get the best race possible in the feature race, which is why they go really berserk. Berserk in a good way, that is. And that's when we see some really close battles, which I think we can't complain about. It just adds to the drama of it.
There's one of the Team Vikings drivers as well out there, just getting laps under their belts. Again, slightly different conditions there for Hans Hansen as he comes across the line just to get himself prepared for this one. But the second race, it's a slightly different mentality. You've got those, as you mentioned there, Samel, the drivers who are trying to get the most out of this one to try and offset the bad race that they will perceive to themselves they will have had in race 1, but also those at the front, Setzel, Setal, they're wanting to try and now get a solid result, maybe not look for the win, but certainly be trying to push for the podium here in the second race.
So with Setzel, it's a bit of a unique scenario. Because he's got a 30-point lead, he doesn't necessarily need the win. And a pragmatic result would be somewhere in around the top 4, top 5. That'll really strengthen out his lead in the championship, or at least not lose too much. But there's always that element in a racing driver, right, of wanting more. And they call it greed, but I just call it determination in racing drivers. So I don't think Setsos is going to back down in any way whatsoever, even though in a case where it's a 50-50 battle, say for instance if he's going side by side like he did with the RT last time out, it would be wise to let it pass. But knowing Sondre, knowing how quick of a driver he is, he'll be confident in his ability and he'll not feel like he should back down, which I think should make for some good action.
Adi Jurdovic then on board with him, the IGL Coatings e-racing team driver, just working his way through turn number 6, and big grin on his face. He's enjoying his little bit of a warm-up here. 3 minutes remaining in warm-up here. You are watching the SimRacing Grand Prix here on RaceSpotTV, powered by Spence. Thank you very much for joining us here today. Hope you're all having a good Sunday and hope you're all enjoying this broadcast. We're certainly enjoying the racing, and in about 3.5 minutes time, business is about to pick up here for this second race. So yeah, definitely looking forward to this second race of the day. Should be a good one, this. But right, looking forward then, who have you got your eyes on here, Samil? Because Fuglsang, last year's champion, he's got a point to prove.
He really has. Fuglsang crashing out with his teammate, I think it was Bjerke at the first particular lap that we saw there. Not the ideal position for him to be in the sprint race, which is interesting because in the race at Imola as well, he crashed out, not in the sprint race, but in the first lap of the feature race, again with one of his teammates. Actually a champion of 2020, guys. He's only 14 years old. But he's got so much focus while driving, so much of pace while being in there. And the interesting part is both times it's happened with the teammate, which will, I think, make the debrief a bit interesting if he's not able to get out a good result from this one. So I really have my eyes on him, Paul, because he's got a proper point to prove, not to anyone else, because we all know what he's capable of, but to himself, that he has to bounce back from a setback like this one, a double setback of sorts between Imola and now this one in the sprint race as well. I think he's going to be going proper hammer and tongs right here. He's just going to be frenetic throughout this race.
The problem is, and we touched on it, about how the drivers keep the emotion out of it. You know, Jackie Stewart famously said, you need to keep emotion out of motorsport, especially when you're driving. True. Because if you really G yourself up to a point where you're absolutely on edge, you're going to make mistakes out there, and you cannot afford that. Glenn Key, solid result in race 1. We'll be looking for an improvement this race. Again, another one who's just absolutely laser focused out there. You can see it in his eyes. Just minimal effort, and that's again the difference between those who are good and those who are great, is just how easy these top drivers make it look out there.
That's very true. That's especially true of all the drivers like Glenn Kane that you're seeing right now. Pure focus, and Glenn's been around in the championship for quite a while. He's proved a lot, and we recently saw him in the 24 Hours at Nürburgring as well, doing quite a good job. So yeah, a driver who knows his car, who knows the 911 GT3 Cup car for years, and even though there's been constant upgrades to it, he's constantly been out there showing his worth in this car. He's quite a driver to watch out for MB Racing Team Nordic.
Well, we'll be looking forward to the feature race coming up very, very shortly. We'll be giving you your grid in just a few seconds' time. And it will be the top 8, of course, who get inverted. So that means that Glenn Key then, pole position ahead of Jartien, with Kenneth Ostwald, Nordstrand, Meyer and Herzog, with Bixrud and Setsos rounding out your top 8. And then the rest of the drivers finishing where they... starting where they finished. Get my words out there, put the old teeth back in. So it is going to be Havdal and Skumalen rounding out the top 10, with Furaseth in 11th and Hielvek in 12th place. We'll get to look at the rest of your grid. key people to look out though. Fuglsang starting right at the back with his teammate of Burke as well. So those two, if those two do get in together again and cause an incident between the two of them, then they could be in serious problems. But forget the grid, we're getting ready for the start of this feature race. Green flag, away we go then for the feature race. Great launch from Bixrud. Went and darted straight for the middle of the track, so easy to cause an incident that way. But heading towards turn number 1 then, it is Key ahead of Thielen with Nordstrand. Oh, off goes Key. My goodness, at turn number 1, cold tyres, cold brakes, and he's gone off into the kitty litter.
That is absolutely calamitous for Glenn Key.
On his stuff.
Sitter. Oh no. Oh boy, that's not how you start a race. Glenn Key, I had so many good hopes from him, just not working out for him right now though, Paul. Look at this battle between the teammates right at the very top though. Even though the first MB Racing team Nordica finds himself stuck in the kitty litter, here they're having a 1-2 right now. In fact, 1-2-3.
Oh, big accident in the background as well. We caught the end of it there. That's turn 5 and even more up and over. That's a complete cartwheel. Get them into the gymnastics at the Olympics with those sort of moves. But Thomas Grendel, Agassi and Isaacson have both headed to the pits. Do you know who else has headed to the pits? Benjamin Fuglsang. It has been a day to forget here as we've got more cars off. That's Leah Hall off the track there, down in 34th right now. My goodness, this is an intense opening to the start of this race. We've got enough of 13.5 laps of this to go, Samel.
Exactly, and the drama is just going to escalate right here. But what a crazy crash that was, Paul, that we saw there down at the Moraine sweep. And this is going to happen every so often when you see drivers go for the edge. No!
Oswald.
Kenneth Oswald.
That's a Canada corner in the kitty litter around. I have a funny feeling he's been assisted there and guided to the edge of the track there, as now Bixrud finds himself in 3rd place, Setsource in 4th. We've got more tyre smoke, we've got trees in the way. That's Thomas Torp. My goodness, this opening lap has just been absolutely chaotic. Bixrud's trying to get around the outside of Thielen. Oh, and going off into the gravel at turn 1, dropping down the order. Can he keep it in line and keep going? Well, he can, but down to 8th place now, Smell.
That is crazy. That is just the kind of drama you should be expecting to see right here in the SimRacing Grand Prix. Happens every other week this way. That is just so bad. And Oswald, for that matter, Paul, Oswald was performing so well in the sprint race, unlike what he had done so far in the season. And now suddenly Furuset makes an error too. See, that's the downhill descending braking corner. That is where locking up becomes so easy. Furuset just proving our case here.
We've lost Dennis Burke as well. Towed back to the pits. Again, another one of those drivers who've had a race to forget. Well, I mean, we've already got 8, 9 now retired from this race. Absolute carnage here at Road America. And this is just going to carry... Well, it better not carry on, because we'll end up with nobody left by the end of this race here if we go at this rate. We need to just take a breath and get a look at the standings. So you can see Burke is in the pits, so we can forget him in 1st place on the timing tower. It is Carl Frederick Herzog in 1st place by 1.4 seconds over Jarl Thielen. And then Sindre Setsource for 3rd place, with Nordstrand 4th, Meyer 5th, and Skumlian in 6th place. Sorry, Oscar Bixrud down in 7th place. So we'll get a look at some of the replays of the start here, Samel, because this has been chaotic.
It has. Look at how Glenn Key just loses the car. That rear end, and you're right, Paul, it was cold tires, cold brakes, carrying too much momentum into turn number 1, a corner, but you have to tiptoe your way past. Then, this crazy accident at turn number 3. Again, one of the MB Racing Nordic cars. That's Harvard Curlin who's gone out of this one. It's so sad because you know that these drivers had such a good chance to prove themselves, but when you put 40-odd cars at Road America with 911 GT3 Cup cars, it's bound to end this way.
I mean, that's the part of the problem with there being the little kink down the straight there. You're not exactly staying completely straight, and then around. Oh, there goes the 87. Not once, but it'll get enough one as well. There, the 69 twice. I mean, the pirouettes, nice pirouettes from Thomas Grendel, but unfortunately, that's him out. And then this is what happened to Kenneth Oswald down at the Canada corner. Is it a little bit of assistance from behind? Yes. Oh no, maybe not. That's a tricky one.
And for MB Racing Team Nordic, it's just a race of two different stories, because right at the top they're leading. Here they're having accidents like this one. What's happened to Thomas Top? Oh, he got distracted perhaps by the car that lost it behind him.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a distraction there that's caused that one. So we've only got 31 cars left in this race already here, so that's quite crazy. What's really crazy is Herzog up at the front, 2.3 seconds in the lead, because Tian and Setsos are battling away. You get the feeling here that Tian is trying to hold back Setsos.
Exactly, that would be some really smart driving by him right there. And now Setsos seemingly does get up another car. This is going to be a proper race of attrition right down to the very end, Paul.
Wangen then off at Canada corner. Has ended up in the kitty litter. There's a little bit of right rear damage to that car as, oh my goodness. Well, pick your lot out of this one, because you got Tian, you got Nordstrand, you got Skumlian as well. Don't say we're going to go 3 wide into one. We are 11, and Setsos is there as well. Can they all make it through? My goodness. Oh, Setsos, a little bit of a hip check there from Tian. Tian to the head of that queue. We get a bump from the side there as well from the 45, just for good measure, from Havdal. I have never seen 3 wide through turn 1 actually survive.
Insane, isn't it? Wow, just the margins at which they were operating right there. Now, Setsos going for a move to the outside line, as he should. And this battle, when it exploded the last time out, not so much here. Look at this. Maya going for a quick send as well, Paul, now.
Well, he's going to come under pressure from Nordstrand. And Nordstrand is going to try and make some moves forward here as well. This is only lap 4 of the feature race. We've still got another 10.5 laps to go here in this one. Plenty of time to sort this out. Just settle down, boys. You've got plenty of race to go. You're allowing, all of this fighting right here is allowing Carl to just waltz away in the lead. He must be absolutely loving seeing what's going on in his mirrors.
Of course, it's the best thing possible for Carl Friedrich Harshog right now, because you've got the likes of Setsos, Nordstrand, Meyer, all blocked off by a teammate of his in Jarl Tien. And this, Paul, is an all-star battle. Tien versus Setsos. Last time out on Imola, this was crazy. And when you add the likes of Nordstrand and Halfdal into the mix as well, this is going to be intense stuff.
Maya and Nordstrand looking at changing positions. They're side by side through Thunder Valley. Ahead of them, Setsos and Tian as well. We're going 2 by 2 through Bill Mitchell Bend. Again, that doesn't normally pan out for you. And Setsos has got the nose ahead of Tian, but Tian will get a good run. The side draft works as well, but they slot in behind each other. They're going to go side by side across the line. 4.5 seconds is your lead to first place, but my goodness, the excitement of this battle going on for second is sensational. Into one. What can they do? Can they all sort themselves out? Well, for the time being, they do. Car off there in the background. That was a 20, and that was Maya. So dropping down from 4th place.
Goodness. What's happened here to Anders Meyer? We shall have a look at a bit of contact made right there between Meyer and Sondre Furuset. And now Furuset is under attack from Bevin right now. Down into turn number 5, Paul. Look at this one. Setsos once again under pressure from Jarl Tien.
Last time I saw contact that heavy was when a bouncer was chucking somebody out of a club, but that's another story for another day. Up towards turn 6, set source. Oh, we've got the 994 of Yadevic off in the background. He's keeping going though, so that's fine. 16th place for him, but out of turn 7, through the hurry downs into turn number 8. Hook that curb, because that curb actually slightly cambered. It helps hook the car around on that left-hander, and then the carousel, the long sweeping right-hander, and Scamillion trying to hang on to that place ahead of Maya. Maya was trying to get the nose on the inside partway through there. Wasn't going to happen, and through the kink and off and away. Now, Setsource has pulled away a little bit of a gap over Thean here. Thean is busy trying to defend from Bixrud behind. That could allow Setsource to just try and pull away at the front, as Larson, huge damage. You can see that damage to the front of the car. That's big issues there for Frank. He's struggling down in 21st.
And with the 911 GT3 Cup car, it does impact you quite a fair bit. It's not the most aerodynamically efficient car in the world, but when you have damage like this one, really compromises your front end speed down the straight line. And a word on Sondre Setsas and Jarl Paul. The reason why Sondre Setsas might not be able to break out is these long straights, is the draft effect that you get right here. So there's only two possible chances for Sondre to break out. It's either if Bixrud really goes for a send on Jarl, or if Setsas just pulls out something really special in the corners, which is possible, by the way. He's the championship leader.
I mean, Setsas could also look at the big picture and think, do you know what? I'm in a good position right now, championship-wise, not to fight too hard at the front of your field, and if people do make moves, you know, it's not the longest of championships, as you pointed out at the start of the broadcast, Emil. You need to get all the points that you can whenever you can here, as Tian behind, showing the nose, keeping close, saying, look, I'm here. I'm surprised there's no flashing of the lights going on. That's usually a tactic that they use when they want to say, right, move out the way, I'm coming through. Through the left-hander at turn 8 and into the carousel. And they're all just setting themselves up now. They're all preparing themselves for the run towards Canada Corner, because there is actually a gap between 6th and 7th places now. So this group is a 4-car battle for second place here. But it is intense though.
Definitely. They're just taking up the intensity to 11 right now. And look at the positions gained on the screen. And Setsas, of course, coming from that comeback, getting 6, and Hershog as well. He's just been benefited so much by all the battling that's going around here. But something tells me, Paul, Tian will not be satisfied with that one position lost. He saw last time out that he can, in fact, pass on with Setsas. A very hard challenge, by the way. If he can do this once again, which is a very, very hard ask, by the way, well, we should be in for a real treat right down to the very end. And he could be assisted. Oh, look at this one. Look at how Sondre is actually swerving left and right to make sure that the others don't get the draft.
And look at that. That's Bixrud taking advantage, using the draft of Setsas in front, and also the side draft coming from Jarl in towards turn 1. Is he going to be clear? He's going to get on the power nice and early on corner exit, get the run out the corner, and that's a nice move there. Round the outside into 1, get the job done on corner exit. Nice move up into 3rd place for Oscar Bixrud.
Indeed, yes, smart and easy. So Jarl now with double the work to do if he wants to get that critical P2 slot right in there. And what it means now is that Hershog does not have a teammate holding up anything back. So Setsas and Bixrud, if they can pull out something special from the hat here, we could see that gap kindly just kind of eked away. And we've actually seen that, Paul. 0.8 of a second lost in the last couple of laps. Now halfway in, I wonder where we will see them eventually and how close they'll be to the very end to Hershog.
Well, Setsas on the last lap gained about 0.08 of a second. So very little gained on that last lap. But now Setsas has really been focused forward on this lap, can just keep looking forward and not think about the cars behind for the time being, although Bixrud will be one to try and do that. My goodness, Yaltian in front of Nordstrand that we're on board with, then getting a wheel on the grass on the exit of the corner of the carousel, and Nordstrand also going well. If you want to put one wheel on the grass, I'll put two wheels on the grass on the exit of the kink, just the fastest corner of the track.
Talk about having some guts.
I know you've got to try and keep the speed up through the kink there, but certainly you're asking for trouble putting the wheels on the grass here at iRacing. We've seen it time and again that you get wheels on the grass and it acts like ice and it just spits you out and around you go. I'm keeping an eye on the lap times here, and look at this then. Setsource 4/10 faster on that last lap. Havdal is making a move as well behind. I'm looking at my timing screen. He's trying to make some moves there. You could see side by side, and moved up ahead then as Havdal actually losing the position, as I say, to Anders Meyer.
And now Anders Meyer can pull out something special from the bag. We've seen that happen every so often here on RaceSpotTV. Quite an ace. He used to race for Team Bergen. Now, of course, he has changed teams. And the interesting thing is, Paul, it seems like the draft it's not working as effectively. Of course, they're trying to avoid the others getting there. But since the recent iRacing updates, not being as prominent as it usually was before.
Into turn number 5. Keep giving themselves plenty of space and then some. There we go. Christiansen then up into the Corvette turn 6, and moves up there, keeps in 10th place, but Berven behind, keeping the pressure on, and he's got Engebretsen behind as well. So 3-car train there, all battling out for 10th place out there on track. Your battle then is this one here. You've also got the lead gap is coming down, I can tell you as well. It's 3.7. Here's Engebretsen's point of view then, a little bit of front left damage on that car.
Yep, really not helping Engebretsen right now. Oh, look at this one! Berwin just getting it wrong on the slide, and there's nothing that Engebretsen could have done. Out he goes.
Done an incredible job to actually keep it out the way of everybody else, but that's what happens if you get it wrong through the kink. We saw it in race 1 on the entry to the kink. Well, here we go. Watch that steering wheel on the left-hand side. There's very little that Engebretsen can do in this situation. There's very little reaction time.
Yeah, and he just had to clobber it. There's no other choice. There's literally no reaction time at all. And that's just the crazy part about the kink. If you just get it just a little bit too loose, gone. No coming back from this one.
Yeah, so dropping down the order then, and Berven is carrying on. Down in 24th though. Now Tian is in 7th place, I've noticed on the timing screen there. And he's trying to move forward, but it's not working for him. Setsource, meanwhile, another 0.4 of a second gained on that last lap. He needs to be gaining a bit more time each and every lap to try and make this work. As there goes Tian. Oh, a little bit of a squeeze. Thank you very much. I'll take that position up to 6th place.
Yeah, he's got a lot to fight for now, Tian. He's lost so many positions right there. I hope we can get a comeback of sorts from him, because he really can be quite an ace. Of course, a driver in the oval side of things as well. So Tian having multiple experiences of different cars. Now let's see what he can make of here. The best drivers, they bounce back from adversity really well. What's happened here to Nordstrand?
Issues then at turn 8, it appears. Maybe gone. It's so easy with turn 8 because it is a downhill braking zone. You can actually end up just braking that little bit too late, and before you know it, you're off in the gravel and the grass as the old Tian now loses 2 positions. He's got issues out there, and he is dropping back. He's really going slow here. Has he got a problem on that car?
I wonder what it really must be, because it doesn't seem like he's got any damage on the outside, Paul. So, and And unlike real-world racing, it can't be an engine dropping down or a gearbox issue.
Must have had a corner cut penalty. That's the only thing I can think of, really, that would cause him to drop back that much, because he's back up to speed now. So that's the other thing we can think of here in the commentary booth. Goddesad is having a good race out there. Engbretson has decided to come onto pit road. That damage just too much from that incident then with Berven through the kink, and deciding that that is it. Amazingly, Glenn Key, who of course had that incident in lap 1, turn 1, is back out there and running, and he's on the lead lap as well, only just there.
Yeah, for Glenn Key, it's just a case of what could have been. Had he just not made that one minor error at turn number 1, could have been such a different circumstance, right? We could have had another MB Racing Team Nordic car right at the very top. Who knows what it would have been then in that case. But Setsos and Big Sur are slowly chipping into that gap. And what's interesting is they're not fighting each other that hard. It's like they know that they have a common mission in hand, that is to get closer to Carl Frederick Hershog right now.
They were close to half a second quicker on that last lap. They need more though, because even if they're going at half a second a lap, they're not going to catch Hershog in time. So they need to work together, which is what you'll see here. And you may be sitting there thinking, why would they work together? They're in opposite, they're not in the same team. They're both fighting it out in the championship. Why would they work together? Well, it's a common enemy, isn't it? That leader is further away. If you just keep together and keep pushing together, you can catch rather than fight it and slowing each other down.
That's very, very true. And when you are involved in a battle, if they were involved in the battle, they'll be losing too much time, because inevitably you go slower while going side by side. That is not what's happening right now. They are playing the game like experienced veterans, which Setsos is. But Big Sur is 14 ball. I can't think that he's got such an amazing amount of composure and that sort of race awareness at such a young age. It must be part of the structure where they are really trained up to be so smart about the race, and it's showing in the way he's driving. That gap is tumbling down right now.
Yeah, enough for half a second. That last lap for Hershog, your race leader, a 2:10.561. Setsos a 2:10.100. So Setsos going that bit quicker, for, we'll call it half a second. It's just under half a second, should we say, to be precise. But time is running out. We've got 4 laps remaining here. If they keep it at the half a second sort of time scale, they'll be in the slipstream by the last lap, but it'll be a tall order to actually make any moves.
Yeah, that's very true. And it comes up to the Murray Walker code, doesn't it? What a legendary man. It's one thing to close up to someone, it's one thing to pass, and now Skumulin is going to show us what it's like to pass, because then he loses the position right there to Matthias Hafdahl, but he's still going side by side, Paul. I love the intensity that we've got here in this championship. Even though Hafdahl has got some damage on his car, he will just not back down.
And gets the position there, and well, all of a sudden, Furusef, that Helimedia car, going to the outside. 2 orange and white cars then, battling it out on track. It's not very often you get that combination of colours out there, let alone across 2 teams. But through the carousel, and you'll see now that outside line, you can get on the speed earlier. That inside line, you're compromised. You're not really going to carry the speed. So there, slot back in for Furusef and moving forward through the kink. You'll think now of those final few laps. Race lead is closing down a little bit more at the front of your field, but it's not quite enough so far. Out of Canada Corner through Thunder Valley. Tremendous battling this towards the end of your top 10, and in fact these 2 battling has allowed Christiansen and Erlandsen to catch up to this battle, along with Godgestad.
So that's very interesting as well. Let's see how they manage it out in the midfield. Of course, getting a chance with the other drivers battling it out against each other. With only a couple of laps to go, you've got to feel that the intensity level will just be coming up to 11. And now it does. First set to the inside line. Will you sweep in to take the move, Paul?
He'll try, certainly will try, up in front as well. 4th place has changed. Meyer moves ahead of Nordstrand, but we're looking at this battle then for 8th and 7th place. There's a locked wheel from in front, and, well, Yeltian, the man who's struggling because of that slowdown penalty, down in 9th, and this is the problem. You can't really go 3 wide. If you do, you're all just going to trip over each other. So he decides to just back out of it, but there's nowhere to go there.
Exactly. So you've got to play the smart game. Got to go for the cutback like he is going to do right now under the Corvette bridge. No, don't tell me they're going 3 wide there.
They are, and they're going to make it through 3 wide as well. Tian doesn't get it. There's a little bit of a hip check between the front two. Here comes Christensen as well. He's getting involved in this one. You've got Erlandson getting there as well. This is tremendous stuff. All running wide there is Furious. That's going to allow Tian to move to the outside line. We've got 2.5 laps remaining in this one. That lead battle, by the way, they only gained 1/10 of a second that last lap, so not gaining enough. Car off, back on, and that was Erlandson. Then the Team Bergen car dropping to the back of this queue of cars. This is tremendous stuff, all battling it out for 7th place.
Indeed, this is awesome. Even in the midfield, they're just having such a great intensity. Tian now looking to get a position on Sander Furset, which he does before the Bill Mitchell bend. He's had a bit of a tricky race so far, but now this is when he actually tries to claw back some positions that he eventually lost early on. Oof, what else are we going to see now, Paul?
Well, the drivers have got 2 laps remaining of this race as they go across the line. Furious, though, getting a great slipstream here. Keep it tucked in tight to the car alongside you so you can get the effect of the side draft as well. And we're almost going 3 wide into turn 1 there. Don't do it, boys. I know the time and laps are running out here, but Tian and Furious still absolutely neck and neck as they head on into turn number 3. Tremendous view for Christensen, but he's now going to have that problem here of getting boxed out by the 2 cars in front here, Smil.
Exactly, that's going to be very tricky, but while they get to the braking zone, another critical point, the hostility is about to begin between Setsos and Bixrud, because now it seems like they can't close up to Hershog. Now they'll have to fight amongst themselves. Look at this big lockup, no! Oh, for a set, God. Poor man.
Well, Tian went off in sympathy as well, and he's battling it out with Erlandson. Erlandson moving forward, and Tian has done nothing but fall backwards in this race. It's not been a feature race to remember for Jarl, but as they move on through, then down to 12th place, Tian to the inside. Can't quite get there, but he's going to be alongside on the outside of the carousel. That's not the ideal position. Trying to get that cut back to the inside, but not working out for him. As you mentioned, that lead battle, it's not really materialised for 1st place, but for 2nd and 3rd, this business will start to pick up here. And in fact, they have caught up considerably. They're within 1.5 seconds, 1.4 seconds between them and the race leader. If you're Bixrud, do you just sit behind, get the points, or do you start battling with Setsos in front?
Send it. What does he have to lose? It's Setsos who has a lot to lose. He is the championship leader. Bixrud, well, it's only all gain for him, so why not go for it and see what it makes up in the end? But not close enough this time, or is he? The draft is getting so good, Paul.
Final lap of the race. Barney has shown the white flag as they head on through. Turn number 1 then. The battle for 2nd place is heating up. Meyer, by the way, in the timing screen, has changed to 4th place ahead of Nordstrand on this final lap. But that one's not going to be over either. But this is the battle that we are focused on right now. Setsos, current coming into this week, championship leader. Bixrud behind coming into this week was 3rd place. 141 points compared to 108 into this round. Through turn number 5 onto the power in towards 6. They're busy challenging each other. Oh, it's Nordstrand running wide. ends up not losing any positions though, was in 5th place going into turn number 5. So that sorted themselves out. Setsource and Bixrud, them two squabbling, has allowed Herzog just to have a little bit of a break at the front there, Samel.
Indeed it has, and now what I can say is Yartian has done an excellent job, because even though he's in P number 12, he held up the likes of Setsos and Mixer long enough to give a good window to Harshog, and he's used that to perfection. What could have happened if Tien did not do that well enough, one wonders, but now it's Harshog who's driven the race of his life. What a win it's going to be here for him.
In towards Canada corner for the final time. The two behind, not really close enough to make any moves. So, Thunder Valley, Bill Mitchell bend, and then turn 14 remain. I don't want to give it the commentator's curse, but through the final corner, all he's got to do is get on the power. He's got a little bit of a slipstream from a teammate in front as well. It does get close, but not close enough, because Carl Frederick Herzog is going to win the feature race here at Road America. Sensational result for Carl. Setsos and Bixrud finish off your podium in 2nd and 3rd place. Meyer able to beat out over Nordstrand, and then you've got the battle to the line for that 10th place. Absolutely brilliant stuff, and even more close battling all the way through. Furaseth only just finishing behind Tien, and they'll carry on flashing across the line here. 30 cars will see the checkered flag here, Samel. It was a bit chaotic at the start, but my goodness, did we get some good racing towards the end.
Oh yes we did, just so good here at Road America. We expected great racing, but this kind of a battle, these kind of narratives and storylines coming in, oh, that is amazing.
Well, it is. There's your race leader, Herzog, getting to just on the cool down lap now, just taking it in, taking that victory here today. That is really good result, because he did come into this feature rate, into this round of the championship in 2nd place in the championship, so he wanted a good result here, and that is a fantastic result for him to finish as your provisional winner of the feature race here then, with Setsource in 2nd ahead of Vixrud. Meyer and Nordstrand, they battled all the way through that race to finish 4th and 5th, with Havdal ended up in 6th place. Skumlian in 7th, just finishing as quick as this, ahead of Christensen, Goddesad and Erlandsen, all together, all within, what's that, about 0.8 of a second between the 4 of them as they crossed the line. Absolutely sensational how close these cars and drivers are out there on track. That's your top 10. Idgovik in 11th place ahead of the recovering Kenneth Ostwald in 12th place, with Jarl Tien dropping down to 13th. He'll be disappointed with that. Sindre Furaseth in 14th ahead of Stefan Helvig. Marcus Meyerseth and Eric Tvet with Thomas Torp. Sindre Silva on a recovery drive after race 1, and Marius Berg in 20th place. Martin Aud with Hansen, Larsen, Berven dropped down to 24th in the end of Berven, with Larsen, Haval, Behrens, Scarrett with Marius Engbertsen, and Glenn Key, your pole sitter, the man who led into turn 1 on lap 1, down in 30th place. Those are your drivers who did not finish this race. Wow, let's take a breath here, Samel. We have to say congratulations to Carl Frederick Herzog, because that was a sensational drive. Yes, your teammate helped you get that gap over the rest of them, but you've still got to keep that intensity up and keep those laps in time after time.
You have. It was amazing, the kind of composure that he created. And he realized, right, he knew that this is my moment. They're fighting right there. They're being held up. I should get out there and switch the gears. That's the important part. Because only the best of racing drivers are able to switch their gears up very well. And he did that effectively and realized when it was time to build up and compound on a gap. What a race, what a drive eventually. Fully deserving of the win. But at the back, that battle between Setsos and Bigstrud, I thought it would get a lot more hostile, but I think both of them realize that they've got more to lose than to gain here by going side by side right at the very end.
As Martin McCutcheon once sang, this is his perfect moment, and that is exactly what we saw here today for Carl Frederick Herzog. But tremendous battling once again. They were all scrapping over each other for that second place, and once Setsos and Bixrud were able to move past the group of Meyer and Nordstrad and Havdal and Tian, once they were able to move past those drivers there, Samil, they were able to really just focus forward and push on in that race.
It's like their focus is just so immensely good. It's like they're shooting out laser beams out just at the right target because they know what they're working on, and it's just an experience, Paul. It's like Setsos and Bixrud, they know exactly what they're in, and that sort of race awareness is what makes a really good driver, understanding the situation and tackling it so effectively. That is what they did here. And it goes to show why Setsos, firstly, is a World Championship driver, and B, why Bixrud is started as one of the best young prospects on the iRacing service right now.
Yeah, certainly is. We are hoping, by the way, that once the drivers have spoken to our Norwegian colleagues, we'll jump on down and have a word with us to see how things went on from their perspective. But yeah, I have to say, Jarl Tian, he was in second place for a long time in that race, and having a couple of incidents out there, it wasn't ideal. But he did, as you mentioned, as you pointed out there, Smil, he did that job and really did get his teammate that win, or at least give him the opportunity to get the win.
Yeah, it was one for the team, this one, for Jarl Tian, and I wonder what the feeling will be like in the MB Racing Team Nordic debrief, because they've got their driver winning the race, but otherwise as well, you could have had Glenn Kay get a good result, you could have had Jarl Tian going out there, perhaps getting a podium as well. So I wonder what the mood will be like right there, because for one big win, they've had many major potential points losses here on offer here today. But the big side is, at least the positive that they can focus on, finally getting that big win right here, Paul. That must be huge.
Yeah. As I mentioned, came into this round of the championship in second place, did Herzog, and had the opportunity to get some good points there, and it turned out for him absolutely perfectly there. But Sindre Setsos, as we can see him being interviewed by our Norwegian colleagues, winning that sprint race again, same as last time out at Imola, won the sprint race, not quite able to translate that to a race win in the feature race.
Yeah, exactly. But I doubt that he'll be disappointed, Paul. I had a word with him before the race, and he said that he's got to keep it under control. And that is what he did today. Just very well under control from him. He knew what he was in for, and he got just that. No need to push for a special win. Even though he did, they almost got so close to Carl Fredrik Herzog. Eventually, just 7/10 the gap. But it'll be a good reassurance to himself and to all the others as well that this man, well, he's just so good. He can close down big gaps so well.
Absolutely. These drivers, of course, will be... we've reached the halfway point of the season. They'll be looking forward to the second half of the season. And what a challenge that awaits them. Bathurst, your next round in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, yeah.
That is going to... I mean, if we thought this was going to be a race of attrition, that could well be an absolute slugfest.
I think I'm going to make an early bold prediction. I think only around 25 people finish there at Bathurst. That's what I think that's going to happen. It's just too crazy a middle sector to have many people surviving. And hey, if anything, that just makes for a good show. And you know for a fact that even though there will be some major crashes down at the lower half of the field, you will have the likes of Setsas, the likes of Bigstrud, the likes of Maya and Herzog producing great battles. So even though it might be a race of attrition like it was today, we eventually saw some immense side-by-side action, which is all what we're here for.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we'll be hopefully getting to have a word with your winner at some point. as we pad for time here. But of course, the championship winner, we didn't touch on this at all during the broadcast. Championship winner does end up getting 50,000 krona here in this championship. I mean, what a tremendous prize for the champion to get there. I mean, second place gets 20,000 as well. So really, really good, strong prizes for these drivers to try and aim for here in this championship.
If you're wondering what it means in your representative currency, I can give you a general idea because US dollars is commonly used as the mediating currency of sorts. It's $6,000 if you win the championship, $2,400 if you're second, $1,800 if you're third, and if you win the race, you get $715 or 600 euros for each race win. Wow, that's some proper big money up on offer. And not just the money, Paul, it's the Norwegian National Championship. You've got real-world racing drivers. You've got rally drivers competing in WRC2. Formula 3 drivers taking part as well. It's a properly prestigious championship, this one.
Certainly is, as these drivers then will find themselves moving through the rest of the season here. And, well, unfortunately, we're not going to get a word with the race winner at the moment, so that's a shame. And, well, I mean, this was my first introduction to the series. I did look back at what happened in the earlier rounds, but really, we've got plenty to look forward to. Now, Bathurst and Hockenheim, there's two completely different circuits to this one here. Of course, Bathurst does tight walls up over the mountain that will really just punish you if you even get a wheel of your line wrong out there in 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks after that, Hockenheim, brand new to the iRacing service, drivers haven't had the most practice around that track, or haven't had the most opportunity to have practice around that track. Certainly could lead to some interesting racing around there.
Yeah, now what I'm really keen to see, Paul, is how it plays out towards the very end, because next up we go to the most anti, depending on what country you're from, the most anti-Formula 1 circuit in the world in terms of Bathurst. And then we go to a one that was built specifically with Formula 1 in mind. That sort of change, no, it should not be major because these are, of course, the best sim racing drivers in Norway, a country that has produced some really great sim racing drivers around. So you can expect them to adapt quite well. But just from the viewing point of view, it's going to be some spectacle to see how they just switch around from that circuit to this one.
Yeah, certainly. So as we get towards the end of our broadcast here, we're just waiting patiently, and hopefully we should be able to get a word with our race winner. Although we are running out of time here, and unfortunately we aren't going to get a word with our race winner here. So closing thoughts, Ed Simil. We've reached the halfway point of the championship. 2 more rounds to go. I mean, Set Source, he's got his eyes set on that championship win.
He really has, and he's done exactly what he needed to. He has kept things under control quite well. And I love this, Paul. I love this championship for the fact that it's not just pure drama and attrition all the way through. You see some great clean racing all the way in. And even though Setsos may have a considerable lead at the top of the championship, there are other major battles to look out for. And he's got a major lead in the championship standings, but at the track, he's really had to work for it. That's the best part.
Well, who will end up taking the championship? We'll have to wait and see. Make sure you stick around RaceSpotTV. There's plenty of action coming up this week. But from myself, Paul Smith, and Samil Aurora here on the SimRacing Grand Prix, we'll see you in 2 weeks' time for Bathurst, which will be an absolute, well, it'll be an absolute brilliant festival of sim racing. Until next time, it's goodbye.